She was 3 months pregnant. Her savings? Gone. Her fiancé denied her, called their baby a mistake. Humiliated, destitute, and alone, she was left for ruined. But the Mafia boss saw her tears, and made a vow of vengeance. What happened next changed everything. To understand how Marilyn found herself in that moment, we have to go back to the beginning. Welcome back. Today, we're diving into a powerful story of dangerous secrets, a life-altering betrayal, and the unexpected love that survived it all. If you're ready, hit that subscribe button and let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Miss, do you have an appointment? The receptionist's voice dripped with condescension, her eyes scanning Marilyn's modest dress and worn flats with thinly veiled judgment. I'm here to see Bruce Lopez. I'm his fiancé. The receptionist's perfectly sculpted eyebrow arched. Mr. Lopez is in a very important meeting. Perhaps you could schedule. Tell him Marilyn is here. Now. The steel in her own voice surprised her. 5 minutes later, Marilyn stood outside Bruce's corner office, her heart hammering against her ribs. Through the frosted glass, she could see his silhouette, relaxed and confident, gesturing animatedly to someone on the phone. She didn't knock. She walked straight in. Bruce's expression shifted through several emotions in rapid succession: surprise, irritation, then something far colder. Calculation. I'll call you back. He ended the call, his jaw tightening. Marilyn, what are you doing here? You can't just barge into my office. You froze my accounts. Her voice cracked despite her determination to remain strong. Bruce, I can't access any money. I couldn't even buy groceries this morning. What's going on? He stood, buttoning his tailored suit jacket with deliberate slowness. We need to talk about that, actually. About everything. Hope flickered in her chest. Perhaps this was all a mistake. Perhaps he'd fix this, apologize, and they'd figure out their future together. She placed a protective hand over her barely showing belly. Bruce, I know the timing isn't perfect, but we're going to have a baby. Our baby. We can work through. That's exactly what we need to discuss. His voice was ice. Marilyn, I've been thinking. Really thinking. This pregnancy. It's not going to work for me. The world tilted. What? I'm at a crucial point in my career. I'm about to close the biggest merger this city has ever seen. I need a partner who complements my lifestyle, my image. Someone who can stand beside me at galas, who understands the world I'm building. He gestured toward her dismissively. You're a sweet girl, but you're not that person. You never were. I'm pregnant with your child. Tears burned her eyes, humiliation and rage warring inside her. Are you? His smile was cruel. Because I'm not entirely sure about that, Marilyn. And even if you are, I'm not interested in playing father to a mistake. The slap of his words hit harder than any physical blow could have. Get out of my office, Bruce continued, his tone bored now, as if discussing something mundane. My lawyers will be in touch. Don't try to contact me again, and don't even think about causing a scene. I've already taken precautions to protect my assets. You'll find you have very limited options. Marilyn's legs barely carried her out of that office. The elevator ride down felt like a descent into hell. By the time she stumbled into the parking garage, tears were streaming down her face, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She collapsed against a concrete pillar, sliding down until she sat on the cold ground, her world shattered into irreparable pieces. The man she'd loved, the man whose child she carried, had just erased her from his life as easily as he'd erased her from their bank accounts. The parking garage was nearly empty, her sobs echoing off the concrete walls like a requiem for her broken dreams. That's when she heard the footsteps. What would you do if the person you loved most betrayed you when you needed them most? Drop your thoughts below. Backhand index pointing down. Marilyn didn't look up at first. she couldn't bear the thought of some stranger witnessing her complete collapse, pitying the pregnant woman sobbing in a parking garage like a character from a tragic film. Mississippi. The voice was deep, measured, carrying an authority that made her breath catch. Are you hurt? She finally raised her head, wiping frantically at her tears with the back of her hand. The man standing before her was not what she expected. Tall, with dark hair swept back from a face carved with sharp angles and shadows, he wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe. But it was his eyes that held her, steel gray, intense, and strangely gentle despite their piercing quality. I'm fine, she lied, her voice hoarse. Just having a bad day. He tilted his head slightly, studying her with unnerving focus. You just came from the Lopez offices. It wasn't a question. Marilyn's spine stiffened. How do you? I was supposed to meet with Bruce Lopez 20 minutes ago. He cancelled. A ghost of something dangerous flickered across his features. Now I see why he might have been distracted. Marilyn struggled to stand, pride warring with the crushing exhaustion in her bones. The man extended his hand, and after a moment's hesitation, she took it. His grip was firm, steady, pulling her up with effortless strength. Will Jackson, he introduced himself, though he didn't release her hand immediately. His thumb brushed across her knuckles, a gesture so brief she might have imagined it. And you are? Leaving, Marilyn said, pulling her hand away. Thank you for your concern, Mr. Jackson, but I really need to. You need to sit down before you fall down. His tone left no room for argument. There's a cafe across the street. 5 minutes. Let me buy you something to eat. I don't need your pity. Good. I'm not offering pity. His eyes held hers. I'm offering information. About Bruce Lopez. About what kind of man you're dealing with. Something tells me you might want to hear it. 20 minutes later, Marilyn sat in a leather booth at an upscale cafe, untouched cappuccino growing cold in front of her. Will Jackson sat across from her, his presence commanding even in the casual setting. He'd made a brief phone call when they arrived, and within minutes, 2 men had appeared, one stationed near the entrance, another by the back exit. Jim and Tom, Will explained, noting her nervous glance. They work for me. You're safe here. Safe from what? From making rash decisions when you're emotionally compromised. He leaned forward, his voice lowering. Bruce Lopez is under investigation. Financial fraud, embezzlement, money laundering. The merger he mentioned? It's a shell game designed to hide his investors' money before the federal auditors close in. Marilyn's blood ran cold. How do you know this? Because I own 40% of the companies he's trying to merge with. And I make it my business to know who I'm dealing with. Will's expression darkened. What I didn't know until 15 minutes ago was that he had a pregnant fiancé he was willing to destroy to save his own skin. He froze my accounts. Everything I had. The words tumbled out, her carefully constructed walls crumbling. I have nothing. No money, no family nearby. My parents died 2 years ago. I'm 3 months pregnant, and the father just told me I'm a mistake he's taking precautions against. Will was quiet for a long moment, his fingers drumming once against the table. When he spoke again, his voice carried a weight that made her shiver. Bruce Lopez made a critical error today. What error? He underestimated what I'm willing to do when someone shows me exactly who they are. Will's smile was sharp, predatory. You said you have nothing. That's not entirely true. You have something Bruce wants very badly, the ability to expose him, to corroborate what the investigators suspect. You have testimony, access to his personal life, knowledge of his habits. I don't understand what you're suggesting. I'm suggesting that you don't have to disappear quietly. I'm suggesting that Bruce Lopez is about to learn a very expensive lesson about consequences. Will pulled a business card from his jacket, sliding it across the table. I'm offering you protection, Marilyn. A place to stay where Bruce can't reach you, can't threaten you, can't erase you. And in return, when the time comes, you help me ensure he pays for what he's done. Not just to you, to everyone he's stolen from. Marilyn stared at the card. No corporate logo, just a name and a phone number embossed in silver. Who are you really, Mr. Jackson? His smile was enigmatic, dangerous, and somehow reassuring all at once. Someone who keeps his promises. Someone who believes people like Bruce Lopez shouldn't get to walk away clean. He stood, buttoning his jacket. The question isn't who I am. The question is, are you brave enough to stop running? He placed a sleek black key card on the table beside his business card. Penthouse suite at the Meridian Hotel. Presidential floor. Everything you need is already there. Jim will drive you whenever you're ready. Why would you help me? You don't even know me. Will paused, something raw and honest flickering in those gray eyes. Because I watched my own mother get destroyed by a man like Bruce Lopez. She had no one to protect her. His jaw tightened. You do. Then he was gone, leaving Marilyn alone with two choices: disappear into nothing, or accept help from a dangerous stranger who just offered her something Bruce never had. The truth. The Meridian Hotel's penthouse suite was a world Marilyn had only seen in magazines, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the glittering cityscape, marble floors that gleamed like mirrors, furniture that whispered luxury in every curve and stitch. She'd stood in the doorway for 5 full minutes, clutching the key card Will Jackson had given her, before finally stepping inside. Jim, the silent driver who'd brought her here, had carried up 3 shopping bags filled with clothes in her exact size, toiletries, and prenatal vitamins. He'd nodded once and left without a word, leaving her alone in opulence she'd never dreamed of inhabiting. That had been 6 hours ago. Now, as dusk painted the sky in shades of amber and violet, Marilyn stood by the window, watching the city below pulse with life. She'd showered, changed into soft loungewear that fit perfectly, and tried to process the surreal turn her life had taken. This morning, she'd been Bruce Lopez's forgotten problem. Tonight, she was a guest in a penthouse suite, protected by a man whose very presence radiated controlled danger. The sound of the door opening made her spin around. Will Jackson entered with the same commanding ease he seemed to carry everywhere, Tom following behind with bags of takeout that filled the suite with the aroma of Thai food. You haven't eaten, Will observed, his eyes taking in her defensive posture. I can tell. How? The fruit basket hasn't been touched. Neither has the pantry. He gestured to Tom, who began unpacking containers onto the dining table. Pad Thai, green curry, spring rolls. If you don't like Thai, I can order something else. This is fine. Marilyn moved cautiously toward the table, her stomach betraying her with an audible growl. Thank you. They ate in silence for the first few minutes, Marilyn acutely aware of Will's gaze on her, assessing, calculating. Finally, she set down her fork. You said you wanted my help in return for protection. What exactly does that mean? Will finished chewing, wiped his mouth with practiced precision, then leaned back in his chair. It means you tell the truth when the time comes. About Bruce's activities, his lifestyle, his business practices. You've been in his life for 3 years, you've seen things, heard conversations, attended events. That information has value. You want me to testify against him? Eventually. But first, I want you safe. Bruce will come looking for you. Men like him always do. They can't stand losing control over anything they once possessed. His expression hardened. Which brings me to the rules. Rules? If you stay under my protection, you follow my rules. Non-negotiable. Will counted on his fingers. 1. You don't leave this building without Jim or Tom. Not for coffee, not for fresh air, not for any reason. 2. You don't contact Bruce, no matter what messages he sends. He'll try ya threats, apologies, promises. Ignore all of it. 3. You trust my judgment on security matters. If I say move, you move. If I say hide, you hide. Marilyn's hands clenched in her lap. So I trade one controlling man for another? No. Will's voice dropped, intensity burning in those gray eyes. You trade a man who wants to destroy you for one who's determined to keep you alive. There's a substantial difference. And what do you get out of this? Besides information about Bruce? Will was silent for a long moment, studying her face as if memorizing every feature. When he spoke, his voice carried an edge she couldn't quite identify. Satisfaction. Watching Bruce Lopez lose everything he values, his reputation, his freedom, his control. Men like him have operated above the law for too long, destroying lives without consequence. Who are you really, Will Jackson? Marilyn asked again, her voice steadier now. What business are you in that gives you this much power? A dangerous smile curved his lips. I own things. Properties, businesses, people's secrets. I operate in spaces where the law becomes flexible. Some call me a businessman. Others use less flattering terms. He leaned forward, his presence overwhelming. But here's what matters. Bruce Lopez thought he was untouchable because he had money and connections. What he didn't realize is that I have more of both. And unlike him, I don't forget debts. So you're a man who keeps his promises. Will finished. I told you Bruce would pay for what he did. He will. But I need you to trust me, Marilyn. Trust that I won't let him hurt you or that baby. The mention of her baby made Marilyn's hand instinctively move to her stomach. Will's eyes tracked the movement, something shifting in his expression, softer, almost vulnerable. I'm not asking you to like me, he continued quietly. I'm not even asking you to approve of how I operate. I'm asking you to let me protect you while we dismantle Bruce Lopez's carefully constructed life. In return, you get your freedom back. Your security. Your future. Marilyn looked at this dangerous stranger who'd appeared in her darkest moment like some avenging angel wrapped in expensive tailoring. Every rational thought screamed that she should run, should find another way, should handle this herself. But rational thoughts didn't pay for prenatal care. They didn't keep Bruce from hunting her down. They didn't protect babies from fathers who called them mistakes. If I agree to this, she said slowly, I need something from you too. Will raised an eyebrow. Which is? Honesty. No games, no manipulation. If you're using me for something beyond taking down Bruce, I need to know what it is. For the first time, genuine surprise flickered across Will's face, followed by something that might have been respect. He extended his hand across the table. Deal. Complete honesty. Do we have an agreement? Marilyn stared at his outstretched hand, strong, scarred, belonging to a man who existed in shadows she'd never explored. Then she thought of Bruce's cold dismissal, her frozen accounts, her uncertain future. She took Will's hand. We have an agreement. The moment their palms touched, electricity shot through her, awareness, attraction, fear, and something else she couldn't name. Will's grip tightened almost imperceptibly, his eyes darkening with an intensity that made her breath catch. Then welcome to your new life, Marilyn, he murmured. Bruce Lopez is about to discover what real power looks like. 3 weeks in Will Jackson's world had taught Marilyn that safety came with unexpected complications. The penthouse had become her gilded cage, beautiful, comfortable, suffocating. Each morning, she woke to the same breathtaking view of the city, ate breakfast prepared by a private chef whose name she still didn't know, and spent her days wandering the expansive suite like a ghost haunting her own life. But it was the evenings that unsettled her most. The evenings when Will returned. He'd arrive around 7, always immaculately dressed, carrying with him the scent of expensive cologne and something darker, danger, perhaps, or simply the weight of whatever business occupied his days. He never discussed details, respecting some unspoken boundary, but Marilyn had learned to read the tension in his shoulders, the tightness around his eyes when meetings hadn't gone as planned. Tonight, she found herself in the penthouse's library, curled in an oversized leather chair with a book on Renaissance art she'd discovered on the shelves. Her hand absently traced patterns on her growing belly, 16 weeks now, the morning sickness finally subsiding, replaced by an energy she couldn't quite channel in her confined world. "You've been avoiding me." Marilyn startled, nearly dropping the book. Will stood in the doorway, jacket discarded, tie loosened, looking more human than she'd ever seen him. Something in her chest tightened. "I haven't been avoiding you. I've been giving you space." "Why?" He moved into the room with that predatory grace she'd come to recognize, pouring 2 glasses of water from the bar, always water for her now, whiskey for himself. "We live in the same suite. We eat dinner together most nights. But you disappear the moment the meal ends. Because staying near you is becoming dangerous," she thought. "Because I catch myself watching you, wondering about the man behind the armor, feeling things I have no right to feel." "I didn't think you wanted company," she said instead, accepting the water he offered. "I wouldn't keep coming back here if I didn't want company." Will settled into the chair across from her, close enough that she could see the silver threading through his dark hair at the temples, the faint scar along his jawline. "Tell me about the art book." "It's about Caravaggio. His use of light and shadow, how he revolutionized." She stopped, catching herself. "You don't actually care about Renaissance painters." "I care about what interests you." His voice was soft, genuine. "You light up when you talk about art." "I've noticed." The admission sent warmth flooding through her. "I wanted to be an art curator once. Before I met Bruce, I was working toward my master's degree. But he said it was impractical, that I should focus on being the right kind of partner for his career." "And you listened?" Marilyn's laugh was bitter. "I was in love. Or I thought I was. Looking back, I think I was just tired of being alone after my parents died. Bruce was confident, successful, seemed to have all the answers. I mistook control for care." Will's expression darkened. "He's been trying to contact you. 47 calls to your old number, 18 emails, 6 letters delivered to your old apartment." Her stomach knotted. "What do they say?" "The usual progression. Anger, blame, accusations. Then desperate apologies, promises to work things out, claims that he's had time to think." Will's jaw clenched. "This morning, he sent flowers to every hospital in the city with your name, trying to find out where you're receiving prenatal care." Fear spiked through her. "He's looking for me. He's getting desperate. The investigation is closing in, and he knows you could corroborate the timeline of his fraud. But more than that." Will leaned forward, his intensity pinning her in place. "He can't stand that you disappeared. That you found protection he can't penetrate. Men like Bruce don't just want control, they need it." "What if he finds me?" "He won't." The certainty in Will's voice was absolute. "I've made sure of that. But Marilyn, you need to understand something. This will get worse before it gets better. Bruce will escalate. He'll make threats, offers, try to manipulate you through guilt or fear. I won't respond to him." "I know you won't." Something shifted in Will's gaze, warming it. "You're stronger than you give yourself credit for. Stronger than Bruce ever deserved." The compliment landed like a physical touch, spreading heat across her skin. Marilyn set down her water glass with trembling hands, hyper-aware of the charged atmosphere between them. "Will, I need to ask you something." "Anything." "Why do you really care so much? About me, about this baby, about taking down Bruce? You said your mother went through something similar, but there's more to it, isn't there?" Will was silent for so long she thought he might not answer. Then he stood, moving to the window, his profile sharp against the city lights. "My mother was pregnant with my sister when my father decided we weren't worth keeping. He was a powerful man, politician, respected in the community. He froze her accounts, threatened to have her declared unfit, used every resource at his disposal to make her disappear quietly. His voice roughened. She lost the baby from stress. Lost herself shortly after. I was 12, old enough to remember everything, too young to stop any of it. Marilyn's heart cracked open. Will. I swore then that if I ever had power, I'd use it to protect people like her. People like you. He turned, and the vulnerability in his eyes stole her breath. So yes, there's more to it. Every time I look at you, I see her. I see a chance to rewrite an ending I couldn't change. She stood without thinking, crossing the space between them, drawn by a force she couldn't name. I'm not your mother. And you're not responsible for saving me. I know. His hand lifted, hesitating, then gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. The touch was electric. But I want to anyway. They stood inches apart, the air thick with unspoken tension. Marilyn could feel her pulse hammering, could see the same awareness reflected in Will's darkening gaze. This was dangerous territory. She was pregnant with another man's child, vulnerable, dependent on Will's protection. Getting involved would be complicated, messy, potentially disastrous. But God, the way he looked at her made her feel seen in a way Bruce never had. Will's phone buzzed, shattering the moment. He stepped back, professional mask sliding into place as he checked the screen. His expression hardened. What is it? Bruce just posted bail for someone. Marcus Chen, one of his business associates who was arrested last week for assault. Will's eyes met hers, cold and calculating now. He's sending a message. Testing my defenses. What does that mean? It means the game is escalating. Will moved toward the door, then paused, looking back at her with an intensity that made her shiver. Stay inside tomorrow. Don't answer the door for anyone except Jim or Tom. Understand? Will, you're scaring me. He returned to her, framing her face with both hands, the gesture both protective and possessive. Good. Fear keeps you alert. But remember, I won't let him touch you. That's a promise, Marilyn. Then he was gone, leaving her alone with her racing heart and the lingering warmth of his touch on her skin. Outside, the city glittered with 1,000 lights, beautiful and dangerous, just like the man who'd become her protector. Just like the feelings she was developing despite every reason not to. The knock on the penthouse door came at 2 a.m. Marilyn jolted awake from restless sleep, her heart pounding as she heard muffled voices in the living room. She grabbed her robe, padding quietly to her bedroom door, cracking it open just enough to see. Will stood in the entryway, still fully dressed despite the hour, speaking in low, urgent tones with Jim and another man she didn't recognize, older, wearing wire-rimmed glasses and carrying a leather briefcase. Found it buried in the Shell Company records, the man was saying, spreading documents across the coffee table. Lopez didn't just freeze her accounts. He's been planning this for months. Marilyn's breath caught. Will's posture radiated controlled fury, every muscle taut with barely restrained violence. Show me everything, Will commanded. She should have retreated, given them privacy for whatever business they were conducting. Instead, Marilyn found herself stepping into the living room, drawn by a sick sense of dread. All three men turned. Will's expression shifted immediately, anger melting into concern. Marilyn. You should be sleeping. What's going on? What did you find about Bruce? Will exchanged a glance with the man in glasses, some silent communication passing between them. Then he sighed, gesturing for her to sit. You should hear this. Daniel, tell her. Daniel adjusted his glasses, his voice clinical, detached, which somehow made the words more devastating. Ms. Marilyn, I'm a forensic accountant. Mr. Jackson hired me to investigate Bruce Lopez's financial activities. What I discovered goes beyond simple fraud. He spread out a series of documents, bank statements, legal filings, email printouts. Marilyn's hands trembled as she recognized Bruce's signature on several pages. 6 months ago, Mr. Lopez began systematically transferring assets from your joint accounts into offshore holdings. But that's not the worst of it. Daniel pointed to a legal document that made Marilyn's blood run cold. He filed preliminary paperwork to have you declared mentally incompetent. What? The word came out strangled. He was building a case to have you institutionalized. Falsified medical records, statements from paid witnesses claiming erratic behavior, even a psychiatric evaluation he commissioned, without your knowledge, declaring you unfit to manage your own affairs. Daniel's expression softened with something like pity. If he'd succeeded, he would have had complete control over any child support or alimony claims. You would have had no legal standing, no credibility, no way to fight back. The room spun. Marilyn gripped the arm of the couch, her breath coming in short gasps. He was going to have me committed? Locked away? There's more. Will's voice was granite, barely controlled rage simmering beneath each word. He pulled out another document, this one a printed email chain. These are communications between Bruce and his lawyer from 4 weeks ago. Right around the time you would have told him about the pregnancy. Marilyn forced herself to read, though the words blurred through her tears. The pregnancy complicates things, but it also provides opportunity. If we can establish mental instability, postpartum psychosis, prenatal depression, we can discredit any claims she makes about the business. The timing actually works in our favor. No court will believe an unstable woman over documented evidence of incompetence. Bruce's response was clinical, detached. Agreed. Initiate the paperwork. I'll handle her emotional state, keep her isolated, dependent, question her judgment. By the time she realizes what's happening, it'll be too late. The document slipped from Marilyn's fingers. Every kind word Bruce had spoken, every moment of manufactured affection, it had all been manipulation, a calculated strategy to destroy her credibility before she could become a liability. He never loved me. Her voice sounded distant, hollow. This whole time, I was just a problem he was managing. Will knelt in front of her, his hands covering hers, warm and solid and real. Marilyn, look at me. She raised her eyes to his, seeing fury and compassion warring in those gray depths. Bruce Lopez is a sociopath who saw you as an asset to be controlled and discarded. None of this, none of it, is a reflection of your worth. His grip tightened. But you need to understand what we're dealing with. He wasn't just going to leave you. He was going to systematically destroy your life, your reputation, your ability to care for your own child. Why? The word broke on a sob. Why go to such extremes? Because he could. Will's jaw clenched. Because men like Bruce don't see consequences for people like you as real. You were convenient until you became inconvenient. Then you became a threat to be neutralized. Daniel cleared his throat. There's one more thing. The email chain references another woman. Someone named Victoria Ashford. Apparently, Mr. Lopez has been engaged to her for the past 8 months. The final piece of the puzzle clicked into place with sickening clarity. Marilyn had never been Bruce's fiancé, not really. She'd been his mistress, his secret, his shame. The baby wasn't an inconvenient surprise. It was evidence of an affair that could ruin his carefully constructed society wedding. He's getting married, she whispered. That's why he needed me gone. Not just quiet, completely erased. Will's expression turned murderous. He's not getting married. He's not getting anything except what he deserves. He stood, pulling out his phone. Daniel, compile everything. I want this delivered to the federal investigators by morning. Jim, increase security protocols. I don't want Bruce within a mile of this building. What are you going to do? Marilyn asked, though part of her already knew. Will turned back to her, and for the first time since she'd met him, she saw the full extent of the danger that lurked beneath his controlled exterior. This wasn't just a businessman protecting an asset. This was something primal, vengeful, absolute. I'm going to make Bruce Lopez wish he'd never heard your name. His voice dropped to something dark and promising. He wanted to destroy you legally, methodically, without consequence. Now he's going to learn what real destruction looks like. He pulled her to her feet, his hands gentle despite the violence radiating from every line of his body. But first, I need to know, are you with me? Because what comes next won't be clean or simple. Bruce will fight back. It might get dangerous. Marilyn thought of the baby growing inside her, the child Bruce had called a mistake, the life he'd tried to preemptively steal. She thought of every woman who'd been erased by powerful men who faced no consequences. I'm with you, she said, her voice steady now, strengthened by righteous fury. Whatever it takes, I want him to pay for this. Will's smile was sharp, predatory, beautiful in its terrible promise. Then let's show Bruce Lopez what happens when you underestimate the wrong woman. What would you do if you discovered someone you trusted had been plotting your destruction all along? Share your thoughts below. Backhand index pointing down. The documents went to the federal investigators at dawn. By noon, Bruce Lopez's world was unraveling in real time. Marilyn watched it happen from the safety of the penthouse, news alerts flooding her phone, assets frozen, business partners distancing themselves, society pages buzzing with scandalous speculation. Victoria Ashford, Bruce's actual fiancé, had released a scathing statement to the press, ending their engagement and threatening her own lawsuit. Will had been right. Bruce was being destroyed, methodically and publicly. But Marilyn couldn't shake the cold dread settling in her bones. He's too quiet, she told Will that evening as they sat in the living room, the city lights twinkling innocently below. Bruce doesn't accept defeat. He retaliates. Will looked up from his laptop, concern flickering across his features. Jim and Tom are stationed outside. The building has state-of-the-art security. You're safe here, Marilyn. I'm not worried about me. The realization had been growing all day, crystallizing into certainty. Will, I'm worried about you. Bruce knows you're the one protecting me. He knows you gave those documents to the investigators. You've made yourself a target. Something softened in Will's expression. He closed the laptop, moving to sit beside her on the couch. I've been a target my entire adult life. This is nothing new. But this is personal now. Because of me. Marilyn's hand found his, threading their fingers together, when had touching him become so natural. Maybe I should leave. Go somewhere else, somewhere that doesn't put you in danger. No. The word was absolute, his grip tightening. You're not going anywhere. We're finishing this together. Will. The lights went out. Complete darkness swallowed the penthouse, the city view vanishing as if someone had thrown a switch on the entire world. Emergency lighting should have kicked in immediately. It didn't. Will was on his feet instantly, phone in hand, positioning himself between Marilyn and the door. Stay behind me. Don't move, don't make a sound. Marilyn's heart hammered against her ribs. In the darkness, she heard it, footsteps in the hallway outside, too many of them, moving with coordinated precision. Jim and Tom, she whispered. Would have called. Will's voice was ice-cold, controlled. This is Bruce. The penthouse door exploded inward with a deafening crash. Marilyn screamed as figures poured into the suite, flashlight beams cutting through the darkness like searchlights. Will shoved her toward the bedroom corridor, his body a shield. Run. Lock yourself in the bathroom, don't come out until I come for you. I'm not leaving you. Go. The command left no room for argument. Marilyn ran, her pregnant body clumsy with fear, stumbling through the unfamiliar darkness. Behind her, she heard the sickening sounds of impact, fists on flesh, furniture splintering, Will's voice barking orders into his phone. She made it to the master bathroom, slamming the door and twisting the lock with shaking hands. The marble floor was cold beneath her bare feet as she pressed herself into the corner, arms wrapped protectively around her belly, tears streaming down her face. How had Bruce found them? How had he gotten past building security, past Jim and Tom, past every defense Will had erected? The sounds of fighting seemed to go on forever, crashes, shouts, the terrible symphony of violence. Then, abruptly, silence. Marilyn held her breath, straining to hear anything over the roar of blood in her ears. Footsteps approached the bathroom door. Slow. Deliberate. Marilyn. Bruce's voice, smooth and familiar and utterly chilling. I know you're in there, sweetheart. Open the door. Let's talk about this like adults. Her whole body went rigid with terror. Your guard dog is taking a nap. Seems Will Jackson isn't as untouchable as he thought. Bruce's laugh was cruel. Did you really think you could humiliate me? Destroy everything I've built? You're carrying my child, Marilyn. That gives me rights. Legal rights. I've already filed for emergency custody. You're an unstable woman who ran away with a known criminal. No court will side with you. You're insane, she managed, her voice trembling. I'm practical. Now open this door, or I'll break it down. Either way, you're coming with me. We're going to fix this mess you've created. Marilyn looked around desperately, no windows in the bathroom, no other exit, no weapon within reach. Just expensive marble and fixtures that mocked her helplessness. The door handle rattled. Bruce was testing the lock. Marilyn, don't make this harder than it needs to be. I don't want to hurt you, but I will do what's necessary to protect my interests. That baby is mine. You are mine. And I always take back what belongs to me. Something inside her snapped. The fear crystallized into pure, incandescent rage. I don't belong to anyone, she said, her voice stronger now. Especially not you. Bruce's response was a savage kick against the door. The frame shuddered but held. You stupid. The lights blazed back to life. Marilyn heard a commotion in the living room, new voices, more footsteps, and then Will's voice, raw with fury and relief. Get away from that door or I'll put you through the fucking window. Jackson. Bruce's voice lost its smooth confidence, edging into panic. This is between me and my fiancé. She was never your fiancé, you delusional bastard. She's under federal protection now. Every second you're here is another felony charge. Through the door, Marilyn heard sounds of a struggle, Bruce shouting threats and denials, then the unmistakable click of handcuffs. Marilyn. Will's voice, urgent and gentle. It's over. You're safe. Open the door, please. Her legs nearly gave out as she unlocked the door, stumbling into Will's arms. He caught her, held her tight against his chest, one hand cradling her head while the other pressed against her back. I've got you, he murmured into her hair. I've got you. Over his shoulder, she saw Bruce being dragged away by men in FBI jackets, his expensive suit torn, his face a mask of impotent rage. Their eyes met for one final moment, and Marilyn saw the truth: he'd never loved her, never seen her as human. She'd been a possession, nothing more. But as Will's arms tightened around her, as his heart thundered against her ear, she realized something else. She'd brought this danger to his door. Her presence had nearly gotten him killed. Will, she whispered, pulling back to look at him. Blood trickled from a cut above his eye, bruises already forming along his jaw. This is my fault. I should never have accepted your help. I'm putting you in danger just by being here. Don't. His hands framed her face, forcing her to meet his fierce gaze. Don't you dare blame yourself for what that monster did. But. No. You're not leaving. We're not done. His thumb brushed away her tears. Bruce made his last mistake tonight. Now we finish this. Together. But even as he said it, Marilyn saw the cost of protection written across his battered face, and her heart broke with the terrible knowledge that loving this man, and she was falling in love with him, she knew that now, might destroy them both. Marilyn didn't sleep that night. Neither did Will. They sat together on the couch as dawn painted the sky in shades of rose and gold, the penthouse still bearing scars from the attack, splintered door frame, overturned furniture, fragments of their shattered sense of safety scattered across marble floors. Will had refused medical attention despite the paramedics' protests, sending them away with terse assurances that he was fine. But Marilyn could see the way he winced when he moved, the careful way he held his left side. Bruce's men had done damage before reinforcements arrived. Jim and Tom, she asked quietly, the question she'd been too afraid to voice earlier. Alive. Hospitalized. Will's jaw tightened. Bruce had them ambushed in the parking garage, timed the attack perfectly. He had someone on the inside, a security guard we're still tracking down. Guilt gnawed at her insides. They were hurt protecting me. They were hurt doing their job. A job they chose, knowing the risks. Will turned to face her, his gray eyes bloodshot but fierce. Marilyn, you need to stop carrying guilt for other people's violence. Bruce made his choices. The consequences are his alone. But I could have prevented this. If I'd just disappeared quietly like he wanted. Then he would have won. Will's hand found hers, his touch gentle despite the violence still thrumming through his frame. And the next woman he decided to destroy would have no one to warn her, no evidence of his pattern, no justice. Is that what you want? No. The word emerged stronger than she expected. No, it's not. Then stop running from this fight. His thumb traced circles on her palm, the gesture both soothing and electrifying. I need you to trust me, Marilyn. Not just to protect you, I know you're capable of protecting yourself. I need you to trust that together, we can end this. Marilyn studied their joined hands, marveling at how natural it felt, how right. When had this dangerous man become her anchor? When had his presence shifted from obligation to necessity? I do trust you, she admitted. That's what terrifies me. I've spent the last month hiding behind your protection, letting you fight my battles while I cowered in luxury. But last night, when I heard you fighting, heard the violence, her voice broke. I realized I can't just be a passive victim in my own story anymore. Interest sparked in Will's eyes. What are you saying? I'm saying I want to fight back. Really fight back. She stood, pacing to the windows, her mind racing with fragments of memory, conversations overheard, details noticed, connections Bruce never knew she'd made. I spent 3 years in Bruce's world. I attended his business dinners, met his associates, smiled politely while they discussed deals they thought I was too vapid to understand. She turned, finding Will watching her with an intensity that made her pulse quicken. I know things, Will. Names, places, transactions. I know which art dealers he used to move money, which charity galas were actually money laundering operations. I catalogued his collection, authenticated pieces, documented provenance. Some of those works were stolen, purchased through black market channels. Her voice gained strength with each word. I have evidence. Not just testimony, actual, documented evidence that I gathered without even realizing it was evidence. Will stood slowly, a dangerous smile playing at his lips. Where is this evidence? Digital files, backed up to a cloud account Bruce doesn't know exists. I used to photograph his collection for insurance purposes, he made me do it, actually, wanted documentation for his records. But I kept copies. High-resolution images with timestamps, authentication certificates, purchase receipts showing falsified provenance. Marilyn. Will crossed to her, his hands gripping her shoulders, eyes blazing with something between admiration and desire. Do you understand what you're saying? This isn't just about protecting you anymore. This is about systematically destroying every illegal enterprise Bruce has built. I know. She met his gaze steadily. And I want to do it. Not because you're asking me to, not because I'm hiding behind your protection, because he tried to erase me. He tried to steal my child, my sanity, my future. I want him to know that I'm the one who brought him down. Pride flickered across Will's features, raw and undisguised. You're not the same woman I found crying in that parking garage. No, Marilyn agreed. That woman died when she read those emails, when she realized the man she loved never existed. The woman standing here now? She placed her hand over her belly, feeling the subtle flutter of movement, her baby, alive and growing despite everything. She's a mother. And mothers protect their children at any cost. Will pulled her close, his forehead resting against hers, the intimacy of the gesture stealing her breath. Then let's give Bruce Lopez exactly what he deserves. Together. Together, she echoed. He kissed her then, not gentle, not tentative, but fierce and claiming and full of promise. Marilyn melted into him, her hands fisting in his shirt, tasting blood and anger and something that felt dangerously like love on his lips. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Will's smile was sharp as a blade. There's a press conference scheduled for tomorrow. Federal investigators announcing the full scope of the charges against Bruce. I can make sure you're there, on camera, telling your story. Showing the world exactly who Bruce Lopez really is. What about his threats? The custody claims, the allegations of mental instability? Already handled. Daniel's been working with prosecutors. They're dismissing all of Bruce's counterclaims as attempted witness intimidation. And I've hired you the best family law attorney in the state, pro bono, before you protest. By the time we're done, Bruce won't have visitation rights, let alone custody. Marilyn's eyes stung with tears, not from fear this time, but from overwhelming gratitude and something deeper, something that had been growing between them since that first moment in the parking garage. Why are you doing all this for me? She whispered. Will cupped her face, his touch infinitely gentle despite the violence he was capable of. Because somewhere along the way, protecting you stopped being a mission and became a necessity. Because you're brilliant and brave and everything Bruce never deserved. Because, he hesitated, vulnerability flickering across his usually controlled features. Because I'm falling in love with you, Marilyn. And I think you might be falling for me too. Her heart stuttered. Will, I'm pregnant with another man's child. My life is a disaster. This is insane. I don't care about any of that. His eyes held hers, steady and sure. I care about you. About who you're becoming, about the future we could build. If you'll let me. Marilyn kissed him again, pouring every complicated emotion into the press of her lips against his, gratitude and fear and hope and yes, love, fierce and unexpected and utterly terrifying. When she pulled back, her decision was made. Let's destroy him, she said. And then let's build something beautiful from the ashes. Will's answering smile was full of dark promise and infinite possibility. The war wasn't over. But for the first time, Marilyn wasn't just surviving. She was fighting back. The federal courthouse steps were crowded with reporters, cameras, and curious onlookers, all waiting for the press conference that would reshape the city's financial landscape forever. Marilyn stood in the lobby with Will, his hand a steady presence at the small of her back. She wore a tailored navy dress that accommodated her now visible pregnancy, her hair pulled back in a simple style that made her look professional, credible, strong. Everything Bruce had tried to prevent her from being. You don't have to do this, Will murmured, though his eyes said he knew she would. Say the word, and we walk away. The prosecutors have enough without your testimony. No. Marilyn's voice was calm, certain. I need to do this. For me. For every woman he might have destroyed after me. Through the glass doors, she could see the media setup, microphones bristling like a forest, cameras ready to broadcast her truth to the world. And there, being led up the courthouse steps in handcuffs and an orange jumpsuit, was Bruce Lopez. Their eyes met through the glass. The man she'd once loved, or thought she'd loved, looked nothing like the polished executive who'd dismissed her so coldly in his office. His hair was disheveled, his face haggard, his eyes wild with the desperate fury of a man watching his empire crumble. He saw her standing there, protected by Will's presence, and something savage twisted his features. He lunged toward the doors, shouting something the glass muffled, his guards struggling to restrain him. Will's arm tightened around her waist. Last chance to change your mind. Marilyn smiled, not with fear, but with the fierce satisfaction of a woman who'd found her power. Not a chance. They stepped outside into the afternoon sun. The press conference was a masterclass in justice. The lead prosecutor outlined the charges: fraud, embezzlement, money laundering, attempted witness tampering, breaking and entering, assault. Each count carried years of prison time. Each count was meticulously documented with evidence Marilyn had helped provide. Then it was her turn to speak. Marilyn approached the microphone cluster, aware of every camera lens focused on her, every reporter hanging on her words. Bruce stood 20 feet away, flanked by federal agents, forced to watch as she dismantled his carefully constructed lies. "My name is Marilyn Watson," she began, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "For months ago, I was engaged to Bruce Lopez. I was 3 months pregnant with a child I believed we'd created together out of love. When I told him about the pregnancy, he didn't just end our relationship. He systematically set out to destroy my life." She detailed it all: the frozen accounts, the falsified medical records, the plot to have her declared mentally incompetent. With each revelation, Bruce's face grew redder, his protests louder until his own attorneys had to silence him. "But what Bruce didn't know," Marilyn continued, her eyes finding his across the distance, "is that while I was playing the role of the quiet, decorative fiancé, I was documenting everything. Every piece of art he acquired through illegal channels. Every business dinner where deals were made that violated federal law. Every transaction that didn't quite add up." She held up a flash drive, the simple device containing years of evidence. "This is 3 years of documentation that corroborates everything the federal investigators have found. Bruce Lopez didn't just betray me. He betrayed his investors, his business partners, and the law. And now, he's going to pay for all of it." The reporters erupted with questions, but Marilyn only had eyes for Bruce. She watched as the reality sank in, that the woman he'd dismissed as insignificant had been the architect of his downfall. That in trying to erase her, he'd given her every reason to ensure he'd never hurt anyone again. "You can't do this," Bruce finally screamed, his composure completely shattered. "That's my child. You're carrying my child. I have rights." Marilyn's smile was cold, victorious. "You terminated your parental rights the moment you tried to have me institutionalized. My lawyers have already filed the paperwork. This baby will never know your name. You bitch." Bruce lunged forward, only to be slammed back by the federal agents. "I'll fight this. I'll fight you. You think Jackson can protect you forever? You think—" "Mr. Lopez," the prosecutor interrupted smoothly, "anything you say can and will be used against you in court. I suggest you save it for your attorney." Will stepped forward then, positioning himself beside Marilyn, his presence a silent declaration of protection and partnership. When he spoke, his voice carried across the courthouse steps with lethal calm. "Bruce, you made one critical mistake. You underestimated the woman you tried to destroy. And in doing so, you handed her every weapon she needed to end you." He smiled, sharp and satisfied. "Consider this payment in full for every crime you've committed. Against Marilyn, against your investors, against justice itself." Bruce's face contorted with impotent rage, but there was nothing he could do. The evidence was overwhelming, the charges ironclad. His attorneys had already advised him to plead guilty in exchange for a reduced sentence, 20 years instead of life. Either way, Bruce Lopez's reign was over. As federal agents led him away, still screaming threats and denials, Marilyn felt the weight she'd been carrying for months finally lift. Will's hand found hers, threading their fingers together. "How does it feel?" he asked quietly. "Like I can finally breathe," she answered. The press conference concluded with the prosecutor detailing the sentencing recommendations and thanking Marilyn for her courage in coming forward. As they descended the courthouse steps, reporters still shouting questions, Will guided her to the waiting car where Jim, recovered from his injuries, stood ready. Before they climbed inside, Marilyn looked back at the courthouse one final time. This was where her old life had officially ended, where Bruce's power had shattered against the truth. But it was also where her new life could begin. Will pulled her close, kissing her temple. "Ready to go home?" "Yes," she said, meaning so much more than just the penthouse. She was ready for whatever came next. With him. 6 months later, the gallery opening was everything Marilyn had dreamed of and nothing she'd expected. Watson Gallery stood etched in elegant letters above the entrance, her name, her vision, her triumph. The converted warehouse space in the Arts District had been transformed into a luminous showcase for emerging artists, the kind of talent Bruce had dismissed as commercially unviable during their years together. Now, as patrons moved through the space, champagne glasses in hand, admiring the carefully curated collection, Marilyn stood near the back and marveled at the impossible journey that had brought her here. "You're glowing," a familiar voice murmured behind her. She turned to find Will approaching, devastatingly handsome in a charcoal suit, carrying a small bundle wrapped in soft blue blankets. Their son, because he was theirs now, in every way that mattered, slept peacefully against his chest. "That's what happens when you get more than 3 hours of sleep," Marilyn teased, though her heart swelled at the sight of them together. Will had taken to fatherhood with the same intensity he brought to everything else, transforming from dangerous protector to devoted parent with seamless grace. "Ethan's been an angel all evening," Will said, gently transferring the baby to her arms. "Though I think he's inherited your talent for perfect timing. He charmed at least 6 potential investors for your next exhibition." Marilyn laughed, cradling her son close and breathing in his sweet baby scent. At 3 months old, Ethan had Will's gray eyes and her dark hair, and a personality that was entirely his own, curious, alert, already studying the world with fierce attention. Bruce had never even seen him. Would never see him. The trial had concluded 4 months ago with Bruce Lopez sentenced to 22 years in federal prison. The judge had been particularly harsh about his attempts to frame Marilyn, calling it a calculated campaign of psychological terrorism against a vulnerable woman. Bruce's appeals had been denied. His business empire had been dismantled, assets seized, and distributed to defrauded investors. Victoria Ashford had sued him separately for fraud and emotional distress, winning a substantial settlement. Bruce Lopez had lost everything. And Marilyn had rebuilt herself from the ashes of his cruelty. "Come on," Will said, guiding her toward the gallery's central space where guests were gathering. "Someone wants to say a few words." Daniel, the forensic accountant who'd helped expose Bruce's crimes, stood near a stunning abstract painting, glass raised. When he saw Marilyn approaching, he smiled warmly. "Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention," Daniel called out. "I'd like to propose a toast to Marilyn Watson, artist, curator, mother, and one of the bravest women I've ever had the privilege of knowing." Applause rippled through the crowd. Jim and Tom, now permanent fixtures in their unconventional family, raised their glasses from their positions near the exits. 6 months ago, Marilyn faced impossible odds, Daniel continued. But she didn't just survive, she transformed her pain into power, her fear into courage, and her betrayal into justice. This gallery stands as a testament to what's possible when we refuse to let cruelty define us. To Marilyn. To Marilyn, the crowd echoed. As the applause faded and conversations resumed, Will pulled Marilyn aside to a quiet corner, Ethan still sleeping peacefully between them. "I have something for you," he said, reaching into his jacket pocket. Marilyn's breath caught as he pulled out a small velvet box. "Will. Before you panic, it's not what you think." "Not yet, anyway." His smile was tender, vulnerable in a way that still surprised her. Open it. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet, engraved with 3 dates, the day they'd met in that parking garage, the day Bruce was sentenced, and Ethan's birthday. A reminder, Will said softly, fastening it around her wrist, that the worst moments can lead to the most beautiful beginnings. That you're stronger than anyone who tries to break you. And that I will spend every day proving I'm worthy of the gift you've given me. Tears pricked Marilyn's eyes. What gift? Your trust. Your love. Your future. He kissed her forehead, then Ethan's. I know we did things backward, protection before partnership, crisis before courtship. But Marilyn, I want to do the rest right. I want to marry you, not because you need protection, but because I need you. Because Ethan needs a father who's here legally, emotionally, permanently. Because I love you both more than I knew it was possible to love anything. Will Jackson, Marilyn whispered, her voice thick with emotion, are you proposing to me in the middle of my gallery opening? No. His smile turned mischievous. I'm telling you I'm going to propose. Properly. With romance and planning and everything you deserve. Consider this fair warning. She laughed through her tears, standing on tiptoe to kiss him, careful not to jostle their sleeping son. I'll be ready. I know you will. Will's arms encircled them both, creating a perfect circle of safety and love. You're always ready. That's what makes you extraordinary. As they stood there, surrounded by art and light and the future Marilyn had built from the wreckage of her past, she realized something profound. Bruce had tried to erase her, to make her disappear into nothing. Instead, she'd become everything he'd feared, strong, independent, successful, loved. And more than that, she'd become herself. The woman she was always meant to be, freed from the cage of someone else's expectations. Across the gallery, she caught sight of her reflection in a polished steel sculpture, a woman holding a baby, protected by a man who'd proven love wasn't about control but about partnership. A woman who'd turned betrayal into triumph, despair into hope, endings into beginnings. Thank you, she whispered to Will. For what? For finding me when I was lost. For showing me I was worth fighting for. For loving not just me, but the family we've created. Will's eyes shimmered with emotion. Marilyn, you did the fighting. I just made sure you had a safe place to land while you did. Ethan stirred between them, tiny fist escaping his blanket, fingers curling around Marilyn's thumb with instinctive trust. In that moment, surrounded by the 3 people who'd become her world, Marilyn understood the ultimate revenge against those who tried to destroy you. Living well. Loving deeply. Refusing to let their cruelty define your story. Bruce Lopez had given her fear and betrayal. Will Jackson had given her love and protection. But the life she'd built, the strength she'd found, the future stretching bright and infinite before her? That was all hers. And it was beautiful. What does true strength look like to you? Is it surviving the storm or learning to dance in the rain? Drop your thoughts below. Marilyn learned that the end of one story is simply the beginning of another. Bruce Lopez thought he could erase her, but instead, he gave her the greatest gift, the motivation to discover who she truly was. With Will Jackson by her side, not as a savior but as a partner, and with Ethan in her arms as proof that beauty can emerge from ashes, Marilyn's story became a testament to resilience, love, and the unbreakable spirit of those who refuse to be victims. Sometimes the person who hurts us most gives us the strength we never knew we needed. And sometimes, in our darkest hour, we find not just survival, but transformation. If this story moved you, subscribe now, turn on notifications, and share this with someone who needs to hear they're stronger than they think. See you in the next story. Until then, keep dancing in the rain.